Hey guys, Coach Ryan, Fastball USA, and oftentimes I get asked, did some of the things that the hitters do back in the day, does it not work today? So for example, in this case, in this lesson, we're talking about the stretch of the front arm and how the wrists are cocked and it sends the bat back towards the hitter's head. You can see the stretch of the front arm with Ruth, and you can see him cocking his wrist and the barrel going back towards his head. And you take a look at Harper and the amount of stretch he gets in his front arm with the wrist cocked and the bat going back towards his head. So to break that down, you can see where Ruth starts with his front arm at almost a 90-degree angle. And then as he starts to load up and he starts to stride, his front arm starts to go further back and stretch. And it stretches and then the wrist cocks. Now if we look at Harper on the left, he starts with also a much more flexed front arm. And then as he starts to stride and come down, you start to notice that front arm starts to lengthen right there. And then especially as he starts to rotate his hips, the hands stay back and the wrists stay cocked. The hands stay back and the wrists stay cocked. So even Ruth, as he initially approaches the ball, you'll notice as he starts to turn his hips, the stretch continues to happen. You watch Harper as he continues to turn, you'll also notice the stretch continues to happen. So a lot of people at this point are really teaching players to have flexion in the front arm so they could be shorter to the ball. But oftentimes what that does, that eliminates the front arm stretch, which is basically what they're doing is they're adding slack into the front arm. The stretch is when the hips start to turn and the hands start to stay back, the wrist stays cocked, and that adds more power to the baseball, but also gives them adjustability in terms of being able to lay off bad pitches. So if this front arm is too flexed or not stretched enough, what ends up happening is the hands will have a tendency to go forward early, getting them ahead of breaking balls. Now, the logic is if this front arm stays a lot more bent, you can get to the ball quicker, but what are you getting to the ball quicker with? Okay? And also understand that not every swing is the same. So you have an A swing, you have a B swing. A B swing is if this fastball is on the inner half and he's late, he's going to have to make an adjustment in his front arm in order to get the barrel to the ball. But that is not the A swing. Once again, that's the B swing. So the point is, some of these things that these guys are doing way back in the day, like Babe Ruth, hands back, wrist cocked, you do see in modern hitters. It's just not taught with traditional instruction today. And keep in mind, growing up, Bryce Harper talks about how he had very little to no hitting instruction other than his dad and him going out and hitting and coaching by large bullet points. And you think about it, obviously Babe Ruth wasn't having a private hitting coach telling him how to hit, and they evolved into this movement pattern, which is really what the elite hitters do. Now, this may look a little bit different, hitter to hitter, in terms of how they're built physically. So, for example, Ken Griffey with longer arms is going to look like he's actually getting more stretch than Bryce Harper. Somebody who's a little bit more bulkier is still going to get stretched, but it's just not going to look as long as, for example, maybe Harper's or potentially even Ruth. So physically it may look slightly different, but the bottom line is when these hips start to turn, if the hands are not back behind that back knee and that back hip, you're going to lose power. You start to become what I would call a punch and Judy hitter, and you got to be really careful with this because off batting tees across America today, that's what people are teaching. They're teaching hitters to be out of sequence, to get to the ball quick, and what ends up happening is they can't drive the ball like they should, which is a really important point. So get back to the natural. Make sure the hips start to clear, the hands are back, the wrists are cocked, and this is a pretty natural thing to start to create into the swing. And if you have any questions about it, just shoot me an email, fastballusa@hotmail.com. Go to our website, fastballusa.com.